Hi folks, this is Ryan here with the first StarGateVR tutorial. In this video, I just want to briefly go over your controls and the control panel in the application. So to begin, this is what you'll see when you boot up the application. You'll see a coordinate axes, some information about the program and the version up top, date, time, etc., your license if you have one, and then in front of you, or wherever your hands are, you'll have two controllers, one on your left hand and one on your right hand, and then a control panel protruding from the left hand controller. So we'll put that down for a second and start with the right hand. This controller has 5 main buttons or things to use. There is a paddle on the left hand side on the sort of stick component which your middle finger should rest upon. There's a trigger on the front of the controller which your index or pointer finger should be touching. And then on the flat top part here, you should have your thumb, and there's two buttons and a joystick there. So there's a button on the bottom, a button on the top and to the left of that, and then a joystick over to the right of that one. You also notice on this controller, there's a long, thin protrusion coming out. That's a sort of pointing vector, but you also use it to point and click and interact with things on the control panel. With that in mind, left hand has the same layout for controller. There's no pointer though. And instead it has this control panel on the top of it. It's attached to where you move your hand. So much like the other controller, there's a paddle, a pointer, two buttons, and a joystick on top. You don't really need to use the trigger for this one. You do frequently need to use it on your right hand. And where you don't use the paddle much on your right hand, you do need to use it frequently on your left hand. We'll go over the use cases in a later video for that feature. Same for the buttons and the joystick on top of both controllers. The other feature of the left hand is this aforementioned control panel. We won't talk about how you do much with it now, but just know that if you want to interact with it, you point your right hand with the pointing vector at something and then you depress the trigger on your right hand. So for example, you could change your coordinate frame preset here by pointing at the UVW and depressing it, should you have data loaded. The only other thing of note here is for these sliders, you need to point that trigger at it and then depress and hold to move them. So you could point here and you can see we've made our axes a lot larger there by sliding it forward. So that briefly summarizes the controls and the control panel. We'll go through the individual features of the control panel later and what they all do in videos that are related to each of them. For the time being, just know that you can interact with it by using your controller on the right hand and pointing and clicking the trigger, labeled select on this controller. Alright, I will see you in the next video. Good luck.